Hello everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome to another virtual pub session at the Mackmyra Inn. I'm your landlord for this evening, Richard McKeon. Ordinarily joined by my co-landlord and colleague Mickey Plummer, but after some comments we had in the comment section last week that Mickey resembled more of a doorman than a landlord, we've decided to give him a trial run on the doors tonight. But he will be back next week behind the bar talking to us live. So we'll welcome him back then. But who I am joined by, we can see on the screen here, we've got Dave Worthington, aka Boutiquey Dave. Hello, Dave.
Good evening, Richard. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for being here. And
Thanks for having me.
Your shirt's very much on theme for the theme this evening as well. You know, about art and creativity in whiskey. So looking forward to talking more about that and your shirt in particular. And then we're also joined by Graham Skinner, member of the London Whisky Club. Community arts project volunteer and coordinator, and a newly made whisky friend of mine through lockdown virtual tastings and things as well. So hello, Graham.
Evening, Graham.
Can you hear us, Graham? Graham looks like he might be catching up on some community work projects now. He's off doing a bit of volunteering, we'll say. So
doesn't look like he's hearing us at the moment.
No, it's not. Well, you might be listening to some tunes. Maybe he needs to take. Graham will be back with us any moment. This is live pub TV. I suppose it's what can happen. I'll take a quick moment just to give the old corporate plug about Black Friday. So we've got one final bundle left. If you go onto mackmyra.co.uk, you'd have seen us launching Black Friday deals last week. Two of those bundles have now sold out, and we've got one left, the Explorer Pack, 5 whiskies, 2 gins and a case of our tonic water. So that's a 4 core range whiskey, one from our seasonal range, the Yak Liquor, and then the 2 gins we've got, which are delicious, by the way. If you're into gin, I have someone in the household that is, and our tonic as well for £199.99, £200. Let's call that. Have we got Graham? Me and you will start, I think. Then Dave, we'll see. Oh, hello, Graham.
Back in.
Hello.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. The first sort of 3 or 4 months of us doing these virtual shows, it was me that was dropping off every single time. So I can definitely sympathise totally. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah.
What I was saying while you were listening to your tunes was, London Whisky Club member. That's where you and I have met through virtual tastings and hanging out after them as well. You know, for hours and hours with some people, enjoying a drink together. And you and I have met through there, but that's where we started talking about your community work, your volunteering work, which is why I thought it'd be great to have you on tonight and have the first sort of themed virtual pub session as well.
Great. Delighted to be here. Thanks very much.
Yeah, well, good to have you. I think that's probably time for the first round. I'd say 6:05 somewhere. So let's pour a glass with each other. Still talk about what we've got and then move into the theme for the evening. So which one of you's got something ready? I saw Graham have a sniff.
Yeah, so this evening I'm enjoying the recent bottling by Whisky Broker of the Tormore. So I'm quite a fan of these heavily spirit-led casks, and it's quite a nice one to start the evening with.
Yeah, very good. I bought something for the Whisky Broker yesterday, a 25-year-old Tobermory for an absolute bargain price. So that's actually my first purchase from them. So I'm looking forward to seeing that when it turns up. Yeah. And Dave, what have you got? That looks like
it's Friday.
Cocktail.
It's Friday, so yeah, Fridays should start with an old-fashioned. So I've gone for a rye old-fashioned because it's the only one to really go for. And because I was talking to Christopher from Coppersea Distillery over in New York State, I've made an old-fashioned with the Coppersea 3-year-old rye. It's 100% floor malted rye, and this is out of our rye series. But yeah, it's just a great old-fashioned. So just some simple sugar syrup. I don't use the sugar cube to smash it up because it's just a bloody nightmare trying to get it dissolved. I can't be bothered with any of that. Just got some Demerara 1-to-1 simple syrup, and I always add a little splash of cream sherry into it just to sort of bring it out. And I've got some nice orange bitters from those bitter bastards, people, and it's just a cracking old fashioned. Yeah.
I need to build. Sorry. I
have got
was
some Swedish whiskey to pour later on, so I've got some Swedish whiskey to join us. Yeah.
On thing, yeah. So I was only going to say, I think I need to build up my my stock, I suppose, of different bitters and things. I've got the, if you tell me if I'm saying it right, the Angostura
bitters. That's the standard, the classic.
Yeah,
everyone has.
That's all I've got. So what others have you got for your cocktails that you make?
Well, I bought some cherry bitters for Manhattans, just to sort of. And I use cherry brandy in my Manhattans because a bartender friend of mine, propping up the barman, Josh, told me how to do that. Josh Linford from Propping Up the Bar. He said, just add some cherry brandy into it. It'll really lift it. And so I bought some cherry bitters to add to that as well. And I bought some orange bitters from just for the old fashions, really, just to change it a smidge. That's all.
Nice, yeah. Graham, do you do anything with cocktails?
To an extent, I quite like some gin and tonic bitters in a gin and tonic, just to give that nice little bit of depth. But in this household, we tend on the special occasions into the espresso martinis and the French martinis and that sort of thing, which is just full on sweetness.
Yeah, nice. Yes, I've not ventured out into them a great deal. I think Dave might know more than you, but we had Friday night shows that we used to do, Mackmyra and Friends, at the start of lockdown, where we had one of our colleagues, Camille Sonka, who's a fantastic mixologist, cocktail maker, creator of all of them. So every week we had something different to make, and if you saw me making mine, I think a couple of those made it into an outtake reel that we put together at some point because they never came off quite as good.
Yeah, I am not a mixologist at all. I can make three. An old fashioned I can make perfectly now. I make a great Manhattan and Bouvardia. I mean, they're my three whiskey cocktails. I have Boutique Pete has taught me a couple of rum ones, which I've managed to actually do the shaking and everything. And even my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, that's pretty good." So not the shaking, just the cocktail. So we're getting there. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's very good. Yeah.
Well, you say that a bit about the shaking. I haven't got a technique. Apparently, every bartender or mixologist has like a shaking technique. I just do it just randomly. I've got no idea. I'm all over the place whenever I do it.
Well, there's definitely an art to the cocktail. I mean, we're talking about art, but that is it is in the classier bars where you have these guys who flavor is their art. That's their art. Mixologists, bartenders, cocktail makers, flavor is their art, and that's where I really got it. That's what I'm a simple man. I just liked my whiskey neat, my coffee black, and my tea black. Very, very simple, and really didn't get it until I started doing these bar calls and meeting these people and then them showing me their art in a glass. And all of a sudden it all made sense. It's me being passionate about the whiskey and the history and the sense of place, and they're being passionate about this flavor that they're creating in the glass. So each cocktail is a work of art. I don't pretend to have anything clever in my cocktail maker. I just literally follow instructions. I've actually got my instructions written down in a book because I can't remember every time.
It's interesting you talk about cocktails being part of art, an expression of art or creativity. When I first spoke to Graham about coming on, I thought, there's a theme in this perhaps about having one. And the first thing that my mind goes to, a layman perhaps with it, is like labels and what the artistic side of labels, especially boutique, but any type of sort of label put together. And there's something actually there's so much more to it. It exists, the shape of bottle molds, the art of the craft, the fact every not every necessarily, but a lot of whiskies that come out of distilleries, Fisher bottling, for example, are called expressions. We say this expression or that expression because it's a master blender expressing some type of a flavor profile that they want to go for, and they create that's art in its process there as well. So but having you on here, I think really time to talk about labels. I know that Graham's got a few boutique bottles next to him.
I love actually love the style of them. I love that they're very loose and very hand drawn. And I love that sort of characteristic. And then I think one of the great things you do with your bottles is that you put so much information in there. We were talking about actually this one here would relate to the blend with the teaspooning, and everyone all hail the teaspoon, and that's saying a lot about that whole process. I think that's really interesting, and one of the things about I think sometimes with the very high-end artist releases, they kind of just stick a picture on a bottle. But I love that your artwork kind of tells more of a story.
Yeah, we try every label should tell some sort of story. Sometimes it tells a lot of stories. Sometimes it's really quite simple, but yeah, we try and tell lots of different things about it. I mean, I've got some of the rye ones behind us, and most of them are really quite simple stories, pictures of the distillery, little tales in there, but there are little hidden things in there, little private jokes, little a thank you, like a little private thank you note hidden in there. There's a little, I've just noticed on this, actually on this copper, there's a little wing and an O, Wingo. If you've ever listened to our podcast, we used to do a wake up Wingo, because Wingo was our cask buyer in America, and so he was responsible for this. So we put a little thank you on there for him. It's hidden in the rocks, which is, you wouldn't notice it unless someone pointed it out to you, which I think is really sweet. But yeah, there's lots of little stories in all of our labels, and each label generally remains the same for every expression. So that teaspooned malt, for example, every batch of blended malt number 1 will have that very same label, so you can recognize it immediately. But between batches, because each batch is quite small, 400, 500 bottles, sometimes smaller, sometimes a bit more, there's one little change. So it's not the same label. You've got to look for the difference between batch 2 and 3. So there'll be different people in the crowd, there'll be different banners, different colours, clothes have changed colour, and you have to look for them carefully.
I never knew. Yeah, I've got batch 3 here, the 18-year-old, and batch 4, which is I think what Graham's got, the 26. I probably won't sit here now and just let everyone at home watch me try and work it out.
Yeah, let's watch you try and work out what you.
I'll save it for later and have a look. Yeah.
It reminds me of with the animated movies where they put the little Easter eggs in, the little bits of information that serious fans can discover, whether it's the animator's kid's birthday or kid's name. I really like that sort of thing.
Yeah, nice. I like that you do little hints as well, Dave, where you're not allowed to name the distillery, but it's Emily, right, that puts your labels together.
Emily Chappell is our artist. Yeah, she is a freelance illustrator based up in Glasgow. She's been with us right from the very start. Did the first 4 labels when we launched in September 2012. So we're 8 years old this year. Well, I think we're just over 170 different labels, and she's been flat out working recently on the next 8 brand new labels, never seen before. So eight brand new labels. I mean, even in this little series that we released earlier, there's 6 brand new labels never seen before. So yes, and she has been flat out busy recently creating labels. So yeah, we're getting close to 200 labels now. And I remember the 100th label not so long ago when we bottled our first ever Speyburn, and we're nearly up to 200 now. It's incredible.
Wow. I think the first boutique bottle I bought was a Leipzig, 19-year-old Leipzig, which I think I've got off the shelf for this. And I just like that. I think Carl might have a picture of it ready for us. Yeah. So this
batch 4, yeah.
I just thought that was excellent, because I've got family connections to Mull. I've been there, my whole life. I've lived there a couple of times, worked there. So this, I just thought it was fantastic seeing this, Thor type character, sort of like a Nordic hammer wielding chap. Jumping down, that to me looks like Bamor and Brookladdy opposite down there. Jumping over to Isla. Yeah,
he's going over to fight the Isla. Yeah, the Isla being. Yeah, it's I mean, the very first label, he didn't have the helmet on. You're talking about those little changes,
right?
So if you get a batch 1, he hasn't got that helmet on.
Which was batch 1? Was batch 1 the 18?
No, batch 1. That was batch 3. Was 18. When we first started. We never had age statements on it at all.
Right. Okay.
So if you want to, if you let me share my screen, I can share.
So we've got Carl in the background. So for anyone that's joined us from home, who incidentally I should say a bit of a hello to as well. Thank you for joining us if you have, and please let us know in the comments what you're drinking as well. And if you want to share anything on social media, hashtag the Mackmyra Inn.
So that was the very first label there, Richard, without the helmet on. So
yeah.
So that's the very first, and now you go, but there are no stars in the skies, and so little constellations appear in the batches as you're going through.
Seeing that on this label I've got here compared to. I prefer him with the helmet. I think he looks like a bit of a brute in that one.
He does look a bit of a thug there, doesn't he? But he's becoming he's becoming more refined. Yeah, let me just I'll take that off of there. Yeah, okay, that was it.
So you tell Emily these are the things that we want to work on. She goes away, comes up with some images and shares them.
She turns these around. Emily turns these around so damn quickly now. I'm so impressed with how quickly she turns this around. We give her a brief, and I've seen some of the early briefs that were given to her, and how she turns it around. She's certainly in our heads now. I mean, there's much more people involved with the design of the label today. Of what we want to try and convey on the label, and certainly with a lot of the new world whiskies that people from the distilleries want to tell their story, want to say a little bit about what they're. Sometimes they want to be on the label, so we have to send pictures of them. But yes, she turns these around as a black and white hand sketch first, and then once we've agreed, oh yeah, that's what we're looking for, then she goes away and colours it, and then we get it back coloured, and we take it from there.
Yeah. And Dave, I've got a question for you actually about how whiskey's marketed, because I know a lot of the big brands have gone with very typographic, very bold. We've got to have our name there. It's got to be really clear on the shelf, and we need to have a really strong age statement. But do you think the way whiskey's sold is changing? So often your label will be on a web page perhaps with the description anyway below it. Does that influence how you pull together a label design, or are you just stubbornly doing what you like?
I think what we do is a first departure when boutique whiskey. It's a first departure from convention about what we wanted to do, what we wanted to get across. We didn't want, we are small batch. We're not something that sticks on a back bar shelf of every pub. Now, what the major brands want to do is to stand out on the back bar, so you want to be seen, which is why you're seeing a lot of that rebranding from those clear bottles with painted labels, with minimalistic labeling on them, into a bit more bolder, so it can be seen from this side of the bar, and seen on the back. People can pick it out really easy rather than looking for a painted brand name on a clear bottle, which you don't really stand out at all. So they're getting these. There's a lot of people using big, bold red letters on white backgrounds at the moment. It's not something that we were ever set out to do. Most of our stuff was very, very small batch, certainly from the beginning. We'd love to be on the back bar of pubs, but they really are more of the specialist whiskey pubs rather than every pub. You've got to be an enthusiast to know boutique-y, really. Certainly in the small batch ones, it's not something. Some of the batches are only 250 bottles. You can't spread that very far.
Yeah. Well, we've had a question. Oh, here we are. Perfect, Carl. We're in sync. Can Dave say if there's any Mackmyra in the boutique world whiskey blend that Graham's just bought?
I'm pretty certain there is some Swedish single malt in the world.
He's got the book. Blend. He's got the book out. I was going to say about your old fashioned at the beginning. So we've spoken a few times before on various different meets with the whiskey circles and such. And you're always making an old fashioned, I'm sure, with that wild whiskey blend.
That's highballs. Highballs.
Okay.
Yeah, highballs. Yeah. A lot of the summer Sunday afternoon drinkings, I was sitting making highballs in the garden with the Sunday afternoon sessions.
You're out there with your pipe and your cigar. Yeah.
Yes, there's definitely some Swedish single malt in the World Whiskey Blend, which is probably Mackmyra.
Have you worked with any others yet, or have you got any in the pipeline, or any of the other 8 that Emily's got to do labels for from Sweden?
Yeah, we have bottled 2 Swedish distilleries. So we bottled Mackmyra twice now. So this is our latest release is a 5-year-old. The first one was a 3-year-old, although it was a lot older than that because of it was the youngest whiskey has to be mentioned on the label. And we've also bottled some Schmorgen.
Okay, yeah, that's quite popular at the moment as well now.
Yeah, so I've got a little sample of that here, which I'll
I think
go on to.
Carl's got a picture of the Mackmyra label, I think, in the background. So can you tell us
Yes.
a little bit about this one?
Well, it's a play on the Angela and Elf. Well, because she's always in the forest, isn't she? She's the cave is in the forest, the warehouse in the forest, the Swedish forest, the Swedish fruits. I mean, your videos has Angela running into the forest regularly with a basket on her arm, collecting wild Swedish berries, whatever they're called. So we decided to make her an elf of the Swedish forests. She's in charge of the Swedish forests.
She is.
Yeah, it's a great label. I love the way she looks great in there. One of the elves, almost like something out of Lord of the Rings, maybe.
That's exactly what I see when I look at it. Also because of the door behind her as well. Into the Moria mines, or the mines of Moria, whatever they are.
So on the first label, the 3-year-old, there was a little trug of cloudberries, and that was a little clue as to the makeup of there, because there was some cloudberry wine cask in that 3-year-old. It's like a little cask there, leaking orangey liquid. Yes, it's and that's the warehouse, the cave, the old. What was it before? Mine, wasn't it? A mine shaft.
Yeah, the Bodas mines. It's all down. Almost sort of 90% plus of what we mature is down there in the mines. I think. Yeah, apart from the sort of private casks and things. So while we're talking about labels, I know that Graham, Carl, if you've got a picture that Graham shared with us, he picked a few
some other labels.
Yeah.
So on the left hand side, we've got a couple of bottles from Thompson Brothers by an artist who I've got a lot of respect for, Katie Guthrie. And the story's great actually about this. She happened to be up staying at the hotel and got chatting to the brothers, and in that conversation she mentioned she was an artist and she's been doing labels for them ever since. But the one on the far left, that's actually for Nauticus Bar. It was a bottle for them. I think Nauticus and Royal Mile Whiskies and one of the owners of Nauticus is displaying the label, kind of like what you were mentioning, Dave, there. And then Bladnoch, the next one over, for their Pure Scott blend, which has a huge following down in Australia. They got an Australian street artist called Vexta to do a label for them. And on the right hand side, you've got an American artist, Tristan Eaton, for Johnny Walker, and he's kind of that size. He'll paint a 20-story building with that same sort of collage style. And then in the middle, we've got this very rare Macallan, the Private Eye Macallan, which changes hands for a couple of £1,000. And that's a really interesting sort of fine artist called Ralph Steadman, who does this sort of cartoon style. So there's huge scope for adding art to a bottle and making these various releases quite interesting.
Yeah, totally. I think there's some really interesting ones that you've chosen as well. And I have to say, I love the Thompson Brothers designs on their bottles. The whiskey is the most important thing. I think the three of us know that. Anyone watching, probably thinks the same thing as well. The whiskey's got to be good. You can't just. Well, you can't just. I'm saying this. You can do what you want, really, but. For me, I need to know that I'm going to like the whiskey, or at least think that I might like a whiskey before I buy it. Based on thinking that the packaging and everything looks attractive. But I don't know. I like if you. I've said this, I think last week. If you buy more whiskey than you can drink, like me, something sits on the shelf for a while. It's nice if something looks good, or you like it, you appreciate the art of it. It gives you an emotional reaction when you look at it. It makes you feel nice having it. So
it's not a collection.
It's important.
I'd say the same thing. It's not a collection; it's a backlog.
Right.
It's a backlog, yeah. Well, this is the boutique office in here, so this is all work whiskey. None of there's a couple of bottles in here that are mine, but nearly all of it's work whiskey.
Yeah, I think a good collection there. But talking about those bottles, it's probably a good time, Graham, to hear a little bit about yourself. I think I mentioned at the beginning, you and I met through the London Whisky Club. We've been on all the virtual tastings together, and we've spoken a little bit on the side here and there as well. And you were telling me you were showing some pictures, I think, a few months ago about some of the community work that you do. And then, we didn't speak for a few weeks. So I checked up and said, how's it coming along, or whatever it was. And you showed me some more stuff. And I think it'd be good if we can go through some pictures in a moment. But I thought I love that community feel thing. And I'm a soft touch for that. It makes me feel warm inside, seeing people go off and do stuff. It does, though. It really does. So I thought it'd be good to have you on. But if you could just, if you're watching, a little bit about yourself, about yourself to begin with, and then a bit about the volunteering that you do.
Okay, so I mean, I think the interesting thing, I guess, anyone that's drinking the kind of whiskey we're drinking, we're always in quite a privileged position to be able to, put our hand in our pocket and treat ourselves to these sorts of things. And there's a challenge out there, isn't there? What can you do with that privilege that does some good? So, long story short, I went to an art festival and was quite inspired to give it a go. And I thought, even if I'm going to be completely rubbish at this, then it would be nice to create this kind of creative household for my kids, where we all grow up and we're maybe a little bit more in touch with our feelings and we all communicate better, and it's going to be a nice place. And as things got going, I realised that actually I can spread that a little bit further. So as I was chatting about that, I don't know, Carl, maybe you could pop up that photo of me starting off painting with the lads. So we started doing some painting together, and then we put some posters up down around Shoreditch and in London, and brought them along, and it was quite an inspiring thing, and people were a lot of people were really quite into that. And then I started doing some community projects. So I started off with a school kids group, and these were all kids that had additional learning needs, shall we say, and I was told they were going to be really badly behaved and it was going to be really rowdy. And in fact, they just had a great day, and that led on to more community projects. This was one I did just this year in relation to lockdown and mental health in the community. And what I tried to do is I try to work with community groups that are really getting to the most in need of some sort of artistic communication. And for me, when I do these kind of things, I just try and give the youngsters as much freedom as possible to let them really express themselves. But it's a fine line between, also, if you're going to paint a wall in a community, it also has to be something that everyone's going to enjoy and look at and feel comfortable looking at. Because as I've learned, if you give kids spray cans, then they are going to make an astonishing mess. So you need to have a bit of a plan to rein that back in a little bit, so that your final project is quite attractive. But I mean, it's been really rewarding. I spent a week with 400 primary school kids from primary 1 to primary 7 painting a 65-metre wall, and it was just as chaotic as you can imagine it, and each class would come out and they'd get buckets of paint, and we put paintbrushes on like really long sticks, because at that kind of length you've got that real freedom to chuck the paint about and make great big sweeping shapes, and we had rollers and all kinds of things. And it was really inspiring for me as well. It was a really there's a lot of freedom in that, real personal freedom in that. So that's kind of the route I want to take my practice going forward, is getting involved with communities and giving them an opportunity to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think one of those photos that Carl showed up, where everyone stood in front of a wall and there's some silhouettes behind them. I think that was the photo that made me want to have you on. I think you see someone in the background there on the left, touching elbows to say hello. What we can't see, unfortunately, behind some of the guys here, as welcome as they are, obviously, of course, to be on the picture on the screen with us, is somebody holding a shopping bag, because they're on the way to go and deliver some shopping to a neighbour that can't get out, that sort of thing. So I just think it's nice. It's a nice community feel. And
and with these projects, the process for me is as important as the final piece. You know, so we did a lot of like group work with the youngsters about what they thought about lockdown, what their experiences had been, and used their ideas. And then when it came to like selecting those silhouettes, rather than jumping on some sort of online resource, we actually took pictures of all the individual kids acting out these various different poses, and got them to cut out the stencils, and then they painted it. So you never really know with one of these projects how they're going to respond on the day. So I didn't know if I would end up painting the whole thing more or less myself and they'd watch, but they were great, and they were just up the ladder, spray and paint everywhere, which was superb. And what you don't really see in that picture, but there was another part of a walkway which was sort of less important, and we were just able to give them a bit of free rein. So we made some smaller stencils, and they just went for it. And just again, it's about giving them that freedom to just be released from those constraints of daily life and just do something fun.
It's an outlet, right? You're giving them something, and some of them will probably be very much into that already. Have an artistic side that they enjoy, and that's something that they like to do. And others, I'm sure there would have been others in there that were, just working out whether or not they enjoyed it. They're there for the community side of it, because their classmates are doing it, or whoever they're sort of come along with. So you're giving people new experiences at the same time, as well as like building something around it. I think that's great.
Yeah, and it's really cost effective. That community project in particular. I'm quite happy to give up my time for that, because it's not my main job, and I always say that a price on a sliding scale, and the better and the more like valuable the project is to the community, the lower my price can be, and we kind of can always work something out.
Yeah.
That was a really important project for that community, and I think the final budget was about £600. And that's no money at all. And if you can keep a project to that kind of price, then it's easy to raise more funding for doing more things as well, which means you reach more people. So
I think that's awesome, yeah. And were you in the papers, in the local papers, the Scottish papers?
Yeah, we actually made it onto the Scottish TV news. They came down and they did a sort of 5-minute feature on it, which was really nice. And they were focusing on not what I painted and what the kids painted, what the project was about, which was great. Really focusing on the issues of deprivation in the community, the challenges with mental health and suicide and poverty and whatnot, and really the mural ended up being a vehicle for that getting discussed, in a very public way. And actually, I think sometimes councils and communities don't want to admit that there's a problem. So sometimes being able to just highlight these kind of issues as well can make a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. And Dave, do you do much in terms of art, or is it just you express yourself through your shirts?
Art. Do I do much about art? I think really no, not anymore. I was a draftsman many years ago. That's why I started life off as a draftsman. So drawing is something I do. My father is an artist. Does always drawing, and my youngest daughter was a bit of a very good at art, and there's a few bits and pieces on the wall of hers here. She's done really well at art from school going forwards. I wish she'd kept it up, and she designed my tattoo, and hopefully she can be designing my next one. But no, do I do much art now? No, really, my art probably now will be either working in wood or working in metal in the garage, but not as art pieces. But I'm working on a barrel at the moment for furniture. So working with wood.
I've seen that.
I love working with wood, and it's been a long time since I've done that, from my boat building days. But I'm going to broken a few barrels down to make some shed. That's what we're going to do.
I think the word art could be quite off-putting. There's a vast amount of people that just wouldn't even consider going in an art gallery because of art, and it can sometimes be a bit off-putting even at school, because everyone wants you to really learn about what art is. But really what we're talking about is creativity, and creativity is freedom. You know, whether you're creating in wood or metal, or you're scribbling on a book, or whether you're being creative with your clothing, you know. And I think that that's a really positive thing for people to embrace and just, you know, kind of be themselves a little bit. I think that's really great for everyone's mental health.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's actually more or less, you know, something that I actually wanted to say. You know, I mentioned earlier that, you know, my mind went straight to labels and things, and sort of art in that way, in a very easy to see and understand way. But really, it's actually there's so much more to it. And what you said, what you actually touched on as well, was something. So, you know, what art is, you know, so art is, as you say, sort of expressions, creativity is what we're talking about. But when I was in school, you know, art lessons from a very young age. I was terrible at drawing. I was terrible at painting. Nothing. I think everything I painted up until, well, even today would probably look as though I was, you know, 5 or 6 years old. It's not very good. So I thought I always, you know, I didn't enjoy art lessons. And as I began to enjoy them less and less, I put less and less into it, because I always thought that art was this very just one-dimensional, you know, thing, just painting and drawing, rather than, you know, an expression of, you know, of, I don't know, who you are, or you're just trying to get something out and create something. So woodwork, you mentioned woodwork, Dave. I really, so CDT was, you know, woodwork in my school. I think it's been branded as different things across the years. But, you know, that was sort of working with metals, working with wood. I loved that. But I never saw it as art. I saw it as like a sort of a functional thing, but really you're creating something the whole way. And I know you used to be an engineer. I think, in fact, Graham is as well. I think we've got a couple of you on. And engineers sort of, you know, I don't know about you two in particular, you know, you tell me. Generally speaking, an innovative bunch. You're either creating something new or improving upon something that's there, that sort of thing. And that's innovations, creativity, and an expression of art as well.
As a design engineer for a long time,
yeah,
absolutely. You're solving a problem ultimately, you know, with engineering, and that takes some creativity. In fact, just this week, an old engineer was complaining to me that the problem with the country is that there's not enough engineers in government, because no one's looking to solve problems anymore.
Interesting.
Not enough engineers in the UK. That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily a problem when it comes to salaries and all the rest of it, but it's a problem.
We don't value engineering over here so much, I don't think, in this country. I don't think we value. When you say you're an engineer, you think you fix cars. You know, an engineer is such a broad spectrum.
Well, everything's engineered, right? So when before I started with Mackmyra, so, you know, my previous life, I wasn't an engineer at all, but I always had an interest in it. I knew that I wanted to get out of my previous career, and I couldn't really think of anything at the time. If someone had said, "Why don't you work in Whisky?" I'd have thought they were asking me to be an astronaut. I'd have thought, you know, there's no way I'm going to achieve that. But I was looking at engineering because I enjoyed it, and I was doing an open university course, just a free one, just to, you know, dip a toe and see what I thought. And in there, I quickly learned, I think in the first sort of few pages of it, they say, you know, if it's not natural, you know, it's engineered. And even some, you know, trees might be engineered to grow a certain way, and you can tweak that, of course. But everything's a pencil. Somebody's designed that first and foremost. That's a form that you've engineered something there. But then you also need, you know, industry to be able to build it, and then you need things to be able to ship it from A to B as well. So if it's not, you know, grass that grows in the ground, everything's engineered. So surely we should hold it up to a higher esteem.
Yeah, but that's the fascinating thing. You know, we're talking about, you know, processes there. You know, whiskey's a process. Whiskey's an industrial process. Although, you know, we love to say that it's you know, a beautiful craft and it's made by artisans. And, you know, they summon it from the skies, but actually it's an industrial process. And I think, you know, even something like in an alcoholic drink, or whether it's a brewed beverage like a beer, there's a lot of similarities between that and things like engineering. Of course, there's a lot more chemistry perhaps in brewing, but I think for youngsters, they often think about sort of service industry, that kind of career, and they don't really think about the sort of the more vocational careers, but, you know, like brewing and distilling even.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it'd be good to encourage more of it. And again, it's just another thing that's a good sort of creative outlet, rather than get stuck in a cycle of service industry jobs that you might really enjoy, but you might have also just gone into it because it's the, you know, we've got more of a service industry sort of economy and culture and things. So yeah. Any tips for somebody that is watching, that's thinking about a career change, that wants to get into, you know, sort of that sort of line of work?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would just say don't give up, and use your personal network as best as you can. I actually, my first degree as a lawyer, did Scots law, and was graduating in 2008, and the industry was with the financial crisis, the law industry was not recruiting anyone, and it was just a chance conversation with a good friend who said, "Why don't you drill for oil? Doesn't that sound cool?" And I thought, well, it sounds better than not getting a job. And part through that first job, I retrained as an engineer whilst I was working, and just been it's been a great life. I've traveled the world with it, and it's something I'm very happy doing.
I think what you said about the technical side. Well, we talk a lot about the romanticism and the romantic side of creating something in the art of the craft, which I think there is an art to it, because you're creating something and it's going to be different each time. Unless you're doing your core year after year, but you're going to have different things coming out. But the technical side. I talk a lot about the technical side. I like to know temperatures and cut points and fermentation times and things like that. And not a lot of talk goes into master blenders roles of they're an artist trying to create something. And with us, because we don't use age statements, I know it's a very convenient argument for someone to make that works for a company that doesn't use them, about the merits that might come with not using them. But because we don't, and because we don't put a minimum age on there, Angela's able to use. She's got this enormous sort of, a broad spectrum of colours on her palette, if you will, to be able to choose from to create something. So if she thinks that adding a couple of 5-year-old whiskies from a 30-litre cask or bigger into a single malt to release something new, at one of our seasonals, for example, she's able to do it. So she's got this massive array of things she can choose from. So quite you've got to be artistic there.
That was definitely our philosophy right from the start. Boutique whiskey, we didn't want to put an age statement on because it allowed us to get an old Macallan and add some young Macallan to it and put it out as a Macallan. If we put an age statement on it, it'd be a 3 or a 5-year-old, maybe not as young as that. I mean, that Mackmyra that we first bottled, when we bottled it as a 3-year-old, I remember Angela saying it's a lot older than that. Well, yes, it is, but the youngest component in there was a 3-year-old, and because we put age statements on, it had to go out as a 3-year-old. It was certainly something. As an independent bottler, we don't bottle single casks. We never say single cask. We never say cask strength, because those two things aren't important to us. There are companies, there are independent bottlers that do that. But what was important to us is that liquid in that bottle is at the right flavor profile, and if that meant that we put a bucket of 15-year-old into that 10-year-old to bring it to where we wanted it, well, why wouldn't we do that? Because we can, and because it will be so much better, and we can bottle it as a 10-year-old, but it'll be superb.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
That one. What I should have done, Dave, because I know you've been coming on for a couple of weeks now, I probably should have said to you, can we do a little dram swap? So I can have it try, because I haven't done it yet. Perhaps we'll book you on for another one, and I'll ask you then.
We should have done that. Yeah, we should have done that. Yeah, I know. I'm always hanging in the background because I don't. Everyone knows I don't watch TV, but I do catch, and I don't generally watch all of these, but I listen to them because I have them on my phone, and they're tuned into my ears. And then I end up with my phone in my pocket, and then I go and do something else. But I'm listening all the time. I'm listening to music. Music is art to me. I can't live without music. The music is on from the first thing I get up to the last thing at night. Either I'm listening to it through Spotify. I love Spotify at the moment. Where I used to have a room like this full of music, records, CDs, cassette tapes, if you remember them, and the pencil.
I remember them.
Right the way back from my first one from '74, but digitized it all, and now I just have it. Now I carry everything around on a phone. The whole music collection, it's incredible.
Go on, Dave.
I listen all the time, so I do listen to most of the Mackmyra nights on every night. Although I was messing around with you the other night when you were trying to speak Swedish. That was having me in stitches, and I was.
That was we had a good laugh about that after the show. I think we tried to keep it together a little bit. Graham, if you didn't see that, I think was it Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday this week we had Swedish Whisky girl, Moa Nielsen. If you've seen her on social
I missed
media.
that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, she came on to teach us a little bit about how to pronounce certain names of ours. So they're all, if you think Scotch has got some unpronounceable names, you should check the Mackmyra range and see what you think about that. But have a look on YouTube, even if it's just to learn yourself about how to say some of them. But we've been mullering them the whole time, basically.
It was funny.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but talking about walking around, I've got little Bluetooth earphones to be a big show off. I walk around with, and I'll listen to a podcast and as I drive around and stuff. And I do the same thing to you. Sort of half forget it's there, and then I'm just absorbing, be it music or podcast as we go. But I've said the word podcast twice now, and it's made me remember you've actually got a boutique podcast, haven't you? With a
we have
coming up, a live episode.
We have. We're doing our first ever live podcast, and I think we're going to stream it live on all channels. So it'll be on YouTube, so it'll be visual as well as audio, and it's going to be something like 2 hours long, and it's on next Thursday night. Is it the 10th? Starting at 8 till 10. So we're going to have rolling guests coming through. So I'm really catching up with some of the guests that we've had over the year from within the whiskey industry around the world. Have our usual nonsense, stupid games, and just a bit of Christmas cheer, a bit of fun. Sort of, that's streaming.
Sounds great.
Streaming live from 8 o'clock.
I love a podcast. Actually, that sounds like an excellent way to spend an evening. When I do my sort of larger street work, I often cut stencils for that, and one stencil can take like 25 hours. And a podcast just is the perfect level of interest. These are sort of 12 foot tall kind of stencils that I put up, and just listening to a podcast whilst I'm creating a stencil is just the perfect level of attention. The attention in your ears to what you're listening to, and the attention to the work you're doing. So I'll keep an ear out for that next week.
Yeah, will do. I will as well. Yeah. Can you tell us who any of the guests are you've got coming?
Oh, we've got some cracking guests. How can I tell you them all? And we've got 15, 16 guests. Oh, wow. A lot of them have been on the podcast before. Some of them are brand new to the podcast or have their own things. So a lot of times on a Friday evening, the Glassmates are on, and the Glassmates are a group of lads down in London, and I listen to them Friday when I can. If I'm not doing something on a Friday evening, I'll catch up with Nigel, Ortis and Jimmy, and they just make me laugh. They're so funny talking about spirits. They're wider spirits, but generally, Jimmy's a whiskey guy, and whiskey and rum they are. And I used to see them at a lot of events in London, and I miss them. I miss them so much because we always had such a giggle when we were out together, And so they're coming on, so that's good to have them on. And Amy from Whiskey Brum, Birmingham.
Okay, yeah.
Whiskey Brum. I was just looking in my Facebook reminders, the Facebook memories, and it was 5 years ago today. I think it was 5 years ago today or yesterday was her first Whiskey Brum festival in the old joint stock in Birmingham. 5 years ago? It might got to be more than that. 8 years ago. It was a Facebook memory and it came up. It's got to be 8 years ago. No, it's got to be not quite. But yes, that came up. It was the day. It must be 5 years ago. Amy's coming on. Becky's coming on. We've got some guys from the States coming over. Mo, who I travelled around the States last year a couple of times. Got the guys from Single Cask. Under Cask Under Nation.
No, Single Cask Nation, yeah. Well, I was actually talking about podcast a minute ago. So we were getting confused there, as they've got Single Cask Nation as their bottling line, and then One Nation Under Whiskey as their podcast. Yeah. And that's the podcast that I listen to now. That's what they've got. I think they started it four years ago or something. And
so funny.
When I joined just before joining Mackmyra, I think I said to Ian Robinson, actually from Rasi, the distiller there, I asked him. He was basically the only person who in the industry I really sort of had met before getting into it. And I said, "Oh, have you got any tips? Anything that you would advise me to look at or to learn? And he said, don't just, toe the company, don't just learn about, your brand and that's it. Get the Whisky magazine, read that and listen to podcasts and things. And the one that he recommended was One Nation Under Whisky with Joshua and Jason. And I've listened to
Jason.
I've listened to podcast. They've got 4 years or so of it, and so many episodes, and I've been going one after another. But as lockdown came in and become sort of more and more strict to things, my day job I've given up, so now I'm Mackmyra all the time and sitting at home. Yeah, so I don't get to listen to things quite as often as I did before with my previous job, where I could walk around at work with one earphone in and my hat covering it so that nobody knew when I was working at Waitrose still. I could get away with it, but yeah, they're excellent. So have you got both of the guys coming on? Have you got Jess from? I think she's their UK rep.
Yeah, we've got them all. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had Josh and Jason on a little while ago on one of our podcasts. I couldn't stop laughing. They were just so funny.
They're hilarious.
The way they bounce off of each other and then bouncing off of us. I mean, it was just hilarious.
Yeah, I think they're awesome. But I've never tried any of their whiskey. I think I found some on Master of Malt not too long ago because I thought they didn't have any over here. And I think
that's what Jess is doing over here. Yeah.
I think I'll get to it now. Yeah, I think for sure. Anything that you listen to, Graham, in particular about?
I listen to like really revolutionary kind of podcasts, really left wing kind of behind the bastards and working class history and all this kind of stuff. I've always kind of. I've only kind of getting into whiskey podcasts now because it's just amazing how much actual information you can soak up in an hour or 2 hours of a podcast. I would say that I take it in more than reading a book, so I do need to get into more of these whiskey podcasts.
Yeah, do it. Well, I'll recommend. Well, the Boutique podcast is the one I'd recommend first, of course.
Uncorked. Whiskey
Uncorked.
Sessions. It's called Uncorked. Yeah, it's a lot of nonsense. We get a bit geeky and we get a bit nonsense, and we always end up with a silly game just to lighten it up.
Yeah, I think I like that they always end with a bit of an Easter egg at the end of the One Nation Under Whisky one, where some sort of blooper will come at the very end of the episode and that sort of thing. They always do misconceptions as well, which is great for anyone who might be on the newer side to whiskey or something coming in that thinks that has some misconceptions. They do a little section on it. And I think that can be quite educational as well. Mickey, Carl, can you help me out and remind me perhaps with a banner about what Mickey Plummer, our colleague's podcast is? It's the Quake something, but if you can think quick enough and show us something, I'm sure you'd appreciate getting a quick plug while we're talking about podcasts as well. While Carl's picking that up and looking into that for me, Graham, we talked about art in a more of an abstract sense and creativity, etc., but is there anything in particular aesthetically, in sort of aesthetic art and appearance that you like about whiskey, or anything in particular that you're drawn to?
There's a couple of things actually. So one of the things I really like is what's happening with beer labels, and beer can labels are just fantastic. Key labels, but they peel off really nicely. So a lot of people like to collect those labels as pieces of art, and of course with a beer can you drink it, and I always think whiskey is something should be drunk, and sometimes some of these bottles are so beautiful you don't really want to finish them. So I think there's a lot of scope for that kind of thing, or being more creative with the way that the labels work. But you already do that at Mackmyra, don't you, with your metal labels?
I was just thinking you've given me a perfect excuse to show a little bit of something of what we've got here.
I try and peel all the labels off at the end of the session. When the bottle's empty, I very rarely put a bottle in for recycling with the label on. And if I can't get it off, I destroy it. But generally, I'm a dab hand at peeling off self-adhesive labels now with a little bit of heat. Hair dryer or fill them up with boiling water. They come off really easy. And I stick them on cabinets. So in my garage, I've got all the old kitchen cabinets, and they're covered in... A long time ago, it would all been motorbike labels. A long time ago, when I had motorbikes, and I've got some of my old cabinets and toolboxes with all the old motorbike labels on. But now it's all whiskey labels, and you make a collage of whiskey labels, and
That's a great tip.
first you start off neat and then you end up sticking over the top of each other, and it's just a beautiful collage. You do the same with cigar bands and things like that. Yeah,
I think that's awesome. Yeah. So the collage thing, that's actually one of the as I said, I grew up thinking that art meant drawing and painting, and because I was rubbish at that, I always thought I was no good at art. But about 5 years ago or so, I think for my brother's birthday or Christmas, I didn't have a great deal of cash this year, so I thought, well, I need to be more creative with the stuff that I do. And where in his childhood bedroom growing up, he had created a collage on one of his cupboards, wardrobe doors, of the slips from video games, from old school PlayStation games to Xbox games and PC games and that. And he made this little collage on the wall with it, on the door, sorry. So I took that off and then found a frame that I could fit it in, got some thick cardboard, put the collage down on it, all these labels, drew around the outside, got a Stanley knife, cut around it so I could put like a border around it and then inside the frame. And that's the thing I'm most proud of in my life.
Awesome.
In terms of sort of like artistic endeavour. And all I had to do was cut around something, but that was it's still. I piggybacked on his collage to begin with, I'll say, but it's still like an artistic thing in a way, and I was chuffed to bits with it. But the labels thing, so that's something my friend Tom has started doing recently as well. But instead of doing it on covers as you've been doing, he's doing it in a book. Where he fills up the bottle with hot water, gets the adhesive to ease away, and then pops it in. But this is what Graham was talking about. So on our moment bottles, and this is the Kushbarshruk, the new one. Terrible focus there, I apologise. We called it KBR internally. But we've got this black band around the outside. There we go.
Yeah.
A Kushbarshruk, cherry smoke in Swedish. But that black band, as well as the top, the capsule, is made of recycled bicycle tyre. And if I can get this off here, so that it's designed so that, as Graham said, we can take the take it off the bottle. You're left with a plain bottle, and you've got the plaque underneath, and where the band would have been, you can just about make out. There's our logo in the middle.
Logo,
and then Mackmyra across the top. So you can keep the plaque with the bottle number and your individual bottle number on there, and that means you're able to recycle the bottle. Guilt free. So these are £100 a go. Our moment range. They're the really limited edition, limited in number. Some of the best casts that Angela might find in the warehouse.
Aye.
And you spend that sort of money on a whiskey. Many people, you'd want to keep that bottle. You pretend to yourself you're going to turn it into a lampshade at some point, and really just going to put it on the shelf until you do. Behind these bottles, I've said it on these shows before, I've got loads of empty bottles here. I've got all these grand plans for, I'm going to make a shelf around the top of the wall sometime with these memorable bottles. But in Sweden, they recycle 95% of their glass. So we had to think and create, innovate a way of allowing people to keep a memory of this nice, expensive and limited bottle that they've got, but at the same time be able to recycle the bottle, without having to put boiling water or whatever in there to do it, and save some of the work. So so you can keep these and keep a little stack of them, or you can put them on a plaque or around a wall.
Pin them onto onto an old cask.
Yeah, but I think that's awesome. That's when I first learned about that. I just thought, someone said, the first thing I heard was this is made of recycled bicycle tyre, and I thought, great, that's green. But I didn't realise why, what it was for. And I think the function.
They always had that.
I don't think there's any moments that haven't had it.
I remember them. I wasn't sure whether they were rubber or they were metal, like a metal band around there. But it was a label. I've had a few, and I can't remember.
No, the metal, the cork stopper at the top on the Moments range, and our Intelligens, the AI whiskey, that's metal, and they're made of recycled cask hoops.
Yeah.
So that would be like the metal band that goes into it. But I think that's a nice touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, well, I imagine that's probably around about the hour mark. I say it might be time to start sort of winding things in, let you guys get to your dinners, get to your families. Graham could go and paint something else, paint something new, and see. What projects have you got coming up, Graham? Have you got anything in the pipeline?
Well, it's a terrible time of year to be working outside at the moment, but I'm just waiting to find out some funding for my local town. So I'm waiting to get a pretty large project, which is sort of recalling the old industrial history where they used to have jute mills in the town. And then we're looking to paint a mural on one of those old listed buildings, which is, just one of those facades. That's all that's left is the facade of the building, but the windows are all bricked up, and we're going to try and retell the history of the building by painting those windows. So we're waiting for the council to approve that funding.
Oh, that'd be cool.
How difficult is it to get
all of the...
Sorry, you froze on my screen. So
you're all right.
Beg your pardon, yeah.
You're all right, yeah. So funding, well, they've said it's going to be easy, but I've been waiting a month since I put my application in, so fingers crossed it's going to be as easy as they said. When I did the research, all of the research was about the men that ran these companies. But yeah, 95% of the workforce is women. So one of the great things we can do with this project is actually celebrate the women that worked in the mills and their lifestyle that they had whilst they were working there, which is a great opportunity as well. So hopefully we'll be painting that in the new year. Yeah,
sounds good. That sounds really good. Mm-hmm. I think one thing we actually I've been reminded or remembered, I should say, that we like to close off actually by asking the guys that we've got on, whoever they may be, what their sort of favourite whiskey scenario might be. Graham, if I were to start with you, who are you? What's the whiskey? Who are you with? And where are you?
Great. It's really lucky I watched one of these old episodes and anticipated this coming. So, like the absolute classic is thinking about the time that you're going to enjoy the whiskey most. But one of the things that I really enjoy through doing this art is meeting international people at some of these art festivals. So for me, it's introducing people to good whiskey, and it might be somewhere really random, like, a pretty run-down industrial site where someone's painting a wall and I've been supporting them and we'll share a whiskey afterwards, or somewhere like that. So for me, they're the real whiskey memories is being able to share whiskey with people that never really encountered it.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah, you definitely. Yeah, I could see you put some thought into that. You weren't on the spot too much. There you go.
No panic. No panic.
Yeah. No panic at all. Yeah.
So before I go on to Dave and ask Dave the same set of questions, I've said Mickey Plummer, my fellow landlord of the Mackmyra Inn. His podcast is called the Quake Podcast. So all I had to do was put podcast after the one word I could remember. And so yeah, the Quake Podcast. So listen to that. And I think where we now ask people, what we just asked you, Graham, that was Mickey's idea. I think there's something that they do to sign off. And then we go the Uncorked Whiskey Sessions podcast as well. And Dave, what was the dates that you've got your live broadcast on?
It's December the 10th from 8:00 in the evening. Okay, so it's a full evening session in the well, obviously it's going to be in here and in Sam's room and whoever else is in all the guests' room. We won't obviously be able to do it in the lab like we used to, or in one place. So it's going to be like the Muppet Show with little windows on a big TV. Yeah, but it would be Thursday. I think it's Thursday. Is it whatever the 10th is? I don't know. I've just got a date. It is Thursday the 10th. Yeah, okay. Which is flat out every day this next couple of weeks, and daytime and evening sessions, and I don't know what I'm doing at the moment, where I am and who I am, but I don't move from here.
Yes, yeah. Well, I've been an armchair ambassador since March, so I joined at the end of February. I left the house maybe 6 times to go out and work for us, and then I've been locked in ever since. So I've been in different parts of this room as I've moved the spare bed around and things like that. So yeah, I know the lockdown and locked in feeling very well. And Graham, and again, one last thing before I do go to Dave to ask him those questions. If somebody wants to look into your work and see if there's anything that they can support you with, or just see what you do, where would they go? You've got Instagram pages.
Yeah, so I'm really only on Instagram. Carl's maybe got a slide you can fire up. He's got it right there. Excellent. So it's a weird thing actually to be putting myself out there. I normally work under a pseudonym, which is Fit Like, which is the local dialect. It means how are you doing in the local dialect up here in the northeast of Scotland. So normally I have like complete anonymity. So it's been quite a fun thing to put my face out here today with you all.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm glad we could be part of it. Yeah, because so Fit Like Art on Instagram for anyone that wants to have a look at Graham's work and see if they can support it anyway. But I'm really glad that you came on. I'm glad that you have dropped at least to a degree. I know, we're not broadcasting live on BBC or anything like that, but thank you for coming and talking about things.
No, thanks for having me.
When you shared those pictures, it didn't take me too long to say, mate, can we get you on, because it would just be great to talk about community stuff for 100% now. So thank you.
So I was just writing that down. That's you were wondering what I was doing here with my pen and my book. I was just writing your handle down so I can find you afterwards, because I won't remember.
Right, have a look. Yeah, Fit Like Art. So anyone watching,
I've got it all down in my book, old school.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, thanks very much.
So Dave, then to sort of close off, or just as we are, your favourite whiskey scenario, or your ideal one. What's the whiskey? Who are you with? And where are you?
Oh, crikey. I mean, for someone who, for the last 3 years, has lived on the road in whiskey, in all around the world, in whiskey bars and whiskey shows, where can you point to one? I liked, after how many months in here? 8 months, 9 months? Anywhere and with anyone. Seriously, it doesn't matter. I just want to get out of here. And I haven't been out, because we live in the middle of nowhere, in the little deepest mid-Bedfordshire. Crikey, yeah, I haven't been out. I haven't been into London since March. I haven't left this village really since March. And so on Sunday, I did sneak out. I needed to see the ocean, because we live about as far away from the ocean as anyone could live from in England. In the British Isles, we're as central England as possibly could be, and I just needed to see the ocean, so I drove to the ocean on Sunday morning just to see it. Otherwise, it wasn't. There's all these signs down the motorway: "Do not leave home unless it's an emergency." I was just thinking, it's a bloody emergency. Someone might die if I don't see the ocean. So yeah, I did sneak down to the ocean on Sunday, and that was good. But yeah, anywhere, anyone. I'd love to be in a bar and have someone make me a drink.
Right. Yeah.
Whether that's in Leith, in the bars up in Leith, or in Edinburgh, in Panda and Sons in Edinburgh, or in the Pot Still in Glasgow, or the Bon Accord in Glasgow. I mean, there's so many places I want to be at the same time. If it's Black Rock down in London, or Soho Whiskey Club, or Milroy's, there's so many places I want to be as soon as we can safely move around. Yeah,
I like that as an answer though. Anywhere, with anyone and anywhere, and more or less any whiskey, I expect as well.
I just want to hug someone,
Yeah, I think me too. I think we're all looking forward to that.
I'm sending it out to you now. Here's a virtual hug in the
group hug.
I feel that. I feel that.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, so it reminds me of I think, is it Ian McAllister? Is he the warehouse manager at Lagavulin? Pinky, his friends called him, I think.
Right.
If you ask him what I've seen him on various things before, and if you ask him what his favourite whiskey is, he'll say his next one or the one in his hand. So I think anywhere anyone makes me think of that answer.
What's your favourite whiskey, Dave? Because you get asked that all the time at so many different shows, and yes, normally the next one. Yeah. I'd like to be in Lucci's in Beaumont on Isla with David Brodie. There's one straight away. I'd love to be back in there, and I was looking forward to getting back onto Isla and catching up with Brodie in Lucci's in Beaumont. That's always a good place to hang out.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll hopefully the three of us can meet in real life sometime, and
I'll drink to that.
Yeah. Let's pour us another dram.
I'm going to pour a glass of something before we go, and I'll say go to Mackmyra.co.uk to find out about our Christmas tasting we've got coming up on the 29th. There we go. It's the first time I've got the date right for that, so well done to me. And Mickey's not here to give me an attaboy either. So have a look at Mackmyra.co.uk. You'll see our Christmas pack tasting there. 4 really, really good, well put together whiskies, I think, for that. And so join us on the 29th. Next week, we've got Mackmyra Life on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Mickey will be joined by two guests from the Whisky Nest, which is a new sort of whisky startup, online shop and subscription service. Tune in next Wednesday to find out a bit more about them. I know that they've actually bought a ready cast from us as well, so I'm looking forward. Even though I'm not going to be on the show, Mickey's sending me a sample of the one that he's bought from them, so looking forward to trying that, one of ours. And yeah, next Friday we've got Carl, have you got the name? I knew I was going to draw a blank on this name. I should have written it down, but we've got a very special guest that Mickey has brought along for us for next Friday for the Mackmyra Inn as well. So someone again, so from the creative industry, someone a bespoke tailor that Mickey's had a relationship with for some time. So we'll be talking probably a bit about, recapping what we've discussed today, getting his thoughts on it, and seeing what life is like for people in Scotland, where for lockdown and things as well, where this guy's from. So so Christmas tasting the 29th. Join us Wednesday and Friday next week for a bit more of this, and I'll see you all guys next week. Thank you so much for Dave and Graham for joining us. Thank you for everyone who's been dramming along at home with us. Glad to have you here. Hope you keep having enjoy the rest of your evening. Graham, I might see you later on if you're going to join the London Whisky Club chat. And
I'll do my best.
We'll catch up soon. And cheers. Skål.
Cheers, lovely to meet you. Skål.